Hi everyone, welcome to the session. And this is session 9 of the Learning to Learn course. And I hope you guys have been enjoying this course and whatever I've been doing in this and my basic structure of what I've been talking about in this. And in today's session, we are basically going to look uh, at the process of learning. Maybe this background is too black. So let me just change it a little bit. Right. So we're going to look at the process of learning and how learning. I mean, we are of course looking at the process of learning in this course, but today an important aspect of learning we are looking at is how to learn in the context of changing habits. Last session I've talked about changing beliefs, and yeah, I just thought that I should not let the weekend go, Vinay. So I thought that I'll be live a little bit later today. So changing habits, and that's what I'm looking at. What is the process? I mean, if you remember, we have talked about a very clear, structured process for everything through this course, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about structured ways to think about habit change. How do you define a process? Can we define a process for change of habits, or is it always something which you are kind of helpless with? So the first contention, of course, is that habits can change and habits do change. And what we are trying to do is create a structured process where we can think about the process of habit change, just like we have done for the process of just like we've done for the process of changing beliefs. So to understand how to change habits, let's focus first on what habits are. And we have talked about those. Habits are not only always bad, and some habits you actually want to hold on to. Some habits you want to hold on to completely, and hence habits can be classified as the good ones, the neutral ones, and the bad ones. And bad habits also, some neutral habits might become bad in the context of certain challenges. So obviously, when I'm talking about changing habits, I'm talking about the habits that have a negative view, things that are hurting you, specifically in the context of challenge you might have picked up. Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Abhishek, and good evening, everyone else. Welcome to the session. Good to have all of you. So, when you're talking about habits with negative view, the whole idea is to think of the situation that or why one needs to to change habits principally is because of the fact that on a day-to-day basis, 99% plus of our actions are guided by habits. And since it is only through your actions and your behavior that you can change results, it's only through your actions and behavior that your results change. This is the only two ways in which you impact your results. And if 99% of this is happening out of habits, and your habits are suboptimal, as I've mentioned in the description, suboptimal or poor, then your actions and behavior will get restricted and your results will be below what you want. This is the basic equation when you talk about habits uh, in this context. So to understand how to change a habit, I would like to go back to a discussion we had about what habits were. And of course, when you're just trying to decide what to learn, we have already talked about identifying the habits you want to shift. We already talked about identifying the habits we want to shift. So, in that context, so in that context, once you have decided on the habits you want to you want to change, the definition of habits by Daniel Goleman in his book The Emotional Intelligence was simply the definition of habit by Dale Goleman in Emotional Intelligence was a habit is nothing but the most practiced response. So, if you have picked up suboptimal habits during your life, if you have picked up suboptimal habits during your life, then the issue becomes that you want to actually uh, resolve them or change them. So something becomes a most practiced response basically means just give me a second. Yeah. So basically means that you have practiced it so many times. You have practiced it so many times that it has become almost like second nature for you. And this is the first understanding you need to happen. You need to have, because normally what we do with our habits is we think of our habits as something that has always been there with us. That's not actually the case. Our habits have not always been there. When you were born, you had no habits. You had no preferences of acting a certain way. You had no habits, and you were completely neutral. In fact, what I'm talking about here is referred to in Hindu philosophy very clearly by two things. It's referred to by the state or the word of shunya. The ability to become shunya is the ability to be a person who has no beliefs and no habits. Do you have this ability inside you? Tomorrow morning, when you're facing a challenge and you want to get rid of all the preconditions that you have because you want to act like a completely neutral guy. So, do you have the ability to come back to shunya? A person who's at shunya has zero beliefs and zero habits. He is not pre-encumbered by anything. He is one with nature and can do anything he wants. Zero beliefs, zero habits. So your habits, whether you like it or not, have or whether you realize it or not, have not always been there with you, and they were things that you actually created by choosing to do certain things. For example, the habits like which side do you sleep on? Do you sleep on your left or your right or on your back? So, which how you sleep is a habit that you cultivated over a period of time. So much so that people, if they are not allowed to sleep on that in that specific way, will not be able to even put themselves to sleep. So these kind of things we have discovered. So of course, which side you sleep on might not be critical for your challenge, and hence you don't want to change it. But what about a habit that does not allow you to concentrate for long? A habit that does not allow you to concentrate for long. What about that? And how long can you continue that? Right? So that ability to go to shunya is something that you need to start developing, and the greats always have it. The greats have that very uncanny ability to do it. And the process of habit change basically involves that. I mean, basically, if you think of a habit simply as the most practiced response, if you want to change a habit, you need to practice the opposite response. Let's say you have a habit of smoking, and every time you cross a, a cigarette shop, you have a habit of stopping your car, and it happens automatically for you. You stop your car or your bike, and you go and buy that cigarette, and you can't stop yourself. So that's your most practiced response. So you'll have to start practicing the opposite. And when you try to do it the first time, because this habit is so embedded and so easy for you to continue, the default is very easy to continue. The default situation, continuing the default is always very easy and very convenient. But when you try to go opposite, there will be pain. There'll definitely be pain. Right? If you have a habit of eating sweets and you decide that I'm not going to eat sweets today, there is a certain amount of pain associated with it. So the first time, the second time, the third time, the pain will be the maximum. But once you do it 2-3 times, it starts getting easier. And this is where, I mean, doing the opposite reaction for the first few times is where your willpower comes in. And this is your willpower. This is where the concept of willpower is required to overcome your habit and do the opposite. You make a conscious decision. The default mode is go back to the habit, execute the habit. Your mind is conveniently attuned to it. Psychologically, you're attuned to it. You like doing that. But there's pain in executing the opposite. But as they say, it takes 21 days. I've read this somewhere, and you can test it also. It takes 21 days to get out of a habit. If you want to get out of a habit, you need 21 days of opposite. It's not about 20 years. You've been doing this for 20 years. But in 21 days, if you continue practicing the opposite response, using your willpower, which stops you from doing what is convenient, from allowing your habit to run by default, you will start realizing that it keeps getting easier and easier to execute the opposite response. So when you define a habit axis, that this is what I'm doing right now, and this is my required desired habit, the opposite, you cannot, like belief you went step by step. I told you from -1 go to -0.99, and then keep coming to the right on this axis by continuously putting a question mark on the negative belief, creating opposite evidence. But when you're talking about habit has to be cut off in one shot. There's no continuum in the habit. It's you're either doing it or you're doing the opposite. So every time I'm giving you an example. So every time you stop yourself, let's take the sweet eating example. or let's parallel take two examples, the sweet eating example or the this is the sweet eating example, and the second example is the example of concentration, the habit of not being able to concentrate. You want to change it to the habit of being able to concentrate, or not being able to concentrate for long to the habit of concentrating for long. Right? Of course, for concentration, you need a little bit more analysis of your mind, etc. But let me just tell you what to do. Now, what happens? Suppose you have a sweet eating obsession and you want to get over it. So there will be, I mean, when I talk about the willpower angle, you don't have to apply willpower 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No. Willpower will be needed at the specific trigger points where you act a certain way which you don't like. So, for example, if you have that sweet eating habit which you want to get over because it's not good for your health, you might have 5-7 triggers in a day maximum of when you like to eat sweets. There will be 5-7 trigger points in terms of time where you will want to eat sweets. So the willpower will be required only in those 5-7 times in the day. And each of those times will be a big battle because your default reaction you have and you are going to your opposite reaction. So the cigarette smoking guy I was talking about, he's driving on the road, he's riding his bike on the road, the cigarette shop is coming up, and as he keeps getting closer to the cigarette shop, he has to push it out of his mind and he has to decide to not stop. And that willpower is required in that instant. It's not required. He'll not need his willpower for the next hour till he comes to the next shop. So it's required in that instant where the trigger is most strongest. You are continuing a study session. You have studied for 45 minutes. There's a trigger to stop because you're telling yourself कि बहुत हो गया. My mind is getting blanked. So you at that point where you want to get up, you need to insert willpower at that point and say, okay, can you do 30 minutes more? And once you start focusing on what you're doing, the need for willpower will be over for the next 30 minutes. So that's what it is all about. So insert your willpower at the trigger points of your habits. Do it for the first 5-7 days, 10 days. Continue it for 21 days. It gets easier, as I told you. Continue it for 21 days, and after that you realize that you are free from this habit which was catching hold of you for the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, etc. So this is how you do it. This is the physical process of doing it, and I hope you can apply this in this course. So I had to talk to you about change of habits. Because without that, the how to learn part of the course will not be complete, and I guess you can leave your questions in the comments, etc. And with that, I will wind up today's session. It's a short one today because this is my message today. And please do subscribe to the Arun Sharma Aptitude channel on Telegram. And you can also subscribe to the CAT Prep with Arun Sharma. Arun Sharma Aptitude channel on Telegram. You can subscribe to that. We try to keep giving you some preparation tips and preparation goodies there. And you can also join the CAT Prep with Arun Sharma. This is a FB group. And of course, you can inquire about our courses, etc. in Mindworks. And I'll see you next with a fresh course, where once you have got all this sorted out, the whole issue becomes managing your mind at the time of action. So I'll do a fresh course for that, At the time of action, how do you manage your mind, and how do you keep mindfulness at the time of action? So there'll be a separate course on that I'll do. So it'll be announced on all our channels and on all our through all our mediums, whether it's Telegram, WhatsApp, or emailers out. So just keep looking out for that, and I hope you have had a good experience with this. With this course, maybe I'll take a concluding session on this course one of these days to finish off and uh, give you a complete list of all the learnings that we have had here. So thank you so much, everyone. With this I'll quit for now. Goodbye.